All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. It's that time of evening when we have to honor the sign in front of the podium. Quiet, please. If I should happen to point you out tonight, that means you're doing something wrong. Like talking. And we ask that you silence your phones. Now, for those that don't know me, how many remember my name? She's only a couple of you. You guys don't remember me? All right, take a look. Take a look. I'm the guy that you look at and think he should rush to the gym. Really? I'm going to ask you the idea though if you remember my name. Now, I hope you all have your singing voices ready.
If we could all rise for prayer.
Please rise.
Heavenly Father, as Easter just passed, we thank you for sending your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We thank you for all members that are here this evening. We pray for any members or family or friends that are ill at this time. We give blessings to our two great speakers who have traveled far to come here with us this evening. And God, you have a sense of humor. I don't know why this technology is not working tonight, so give these people out there patience with us. So we ask you to help us to have a great meeting and also to watch over Donald Trump. Despite some people not liking him, he doesn't have to do this, so God, we thank you for him stepping forward. We ask you to bless this meeting. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's see if this would. She's saying, oh, say,
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, blue frost stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched, words of gallantry streaming, and on its red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Very commendable. You all did a fine job.
opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, opening remarks. I'll keep it very simple. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for your patience. We will get through this evening. We have two great speakers. Those are my opening remarks. Next slide. Those who are listening at all, you have to see myself or you can see Tom Carroll, but you can't just pop things on the tables. We've had people that even come up to us trying to promote their garage sale, believe it or not. we have to work within the organization's constraints. All right, Mr. Rush.
All right, I ask at this time if you can respect the speakers that we have on the stage. And we ask you to be quiet, stay silent. If you must have a conversation, there's an area in the back of the bar hall to my left where you can go back in that corner and talk all you want. Low.
All right. I regretfully inform all of you, Jacob Stock, or Jake, passed away unexpectedly. I don't know, is his wife here? Hey, are you here? All right, so I think it was Glenn Geisinger that contacted me. They go to the same Mormon temple. He told me that he died on a Sunday, and it was unexpected. So I did let some of the board members know. James, you know, was probably one of the first, if not the first, second, or third person to always show up here. I usually get here between 1 and 2:30, and it takes a long time to set up all this stuff. You probably think it's 1, 2, 3, but no, it takes quite a while. So I'm in here all by myself, dark room, and Jake comes in and, all right, I got to back up here, someone to talk to. So I will truly miss Jake. When we used to have the screen, before we had this pull-down screen, Jake used to set up that screen. I don't know if you remember. I knew how to set it up, but it was a 20-minute job. So when he came in and set that up, he was, you know, it was a big help. So I ask you to keep his wife Kay in prayers, and also Jake in prayer. We will miss him. Thank you for his service as a veteran. All right, Mr. Rush will read the next slide.
All right, the membership and treasury reports, the total members as of this date are 7,316 members of this organization, the Lehigh Valley Tea Party. The bank balance is $65,255.62. Credit line available funds, $16,000. Now, do we have any first-time attendees here tonight? 1, 2, stand. So we all recognize you. Thank you very much. Now all we need is for you to sign up as members.
We can do that because we have our new second square terminal. Thank you over there to Mr. Tittle. Mr. Tittle, he bought the second unit, and someone did ask a good question last month. Maybe I did not answer it as good as I would. So the question was, I said we will use that machine outside of this meeting. So we have Second Amendment meetings. We go to other, like Burke's Patriots. So there's other events to go to. Amelia teased me. She said I would take it to a baseball game where little kids are playing and try to sign those parents up. So I might try that, see if I can sign some up. So thank you to everyone who contributed to help us get these two machines.
All right, our 50-50 raffle tonight, there will be one winner, and the raffle tickets are sold in the back. She's waving her hand back there now. Tom's waving his hand. Get your 50-50 raffle ticket, and I recommend that you wait till the break to go back and pick up your 50-50 tickets.
They're not going to want to wait because we have a special announcement, breaking news. Mr. Barkerberg will tell you.
Good evening, everyone.
All those people who didn't show up tonight, we won't tell them. What do you think?
They'll find out tomorrow.
All right. Yes. Quick question. How will you find out officially? We'll put it on the website. We'll figure out a way. All right. So make sure you find out 50-50. Take a chemo and Tom busy. All right. Next one here. Tom.
Jim. I'm Jim. In case you forgot. Listen, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Bill Bockenberg for everything that he's done to get this underway and get the Donald up here to speak with us. Yep, he's kind of flimsy.
the stage he's passing through.
Thank you, Bill. All right, the Second Amendment Committee raffle, $500 gift certificate of your choice from 100 Really, Firing Line from A.F. Blair Hardware, or from Bill Bockenberg's Lehigh Valley Sporting Clays. Now you can use your certificate for guns, training, ammo, etc., etc. Now we only sell 100 tickets. And right now, I think there are only 60 tickets left. So if you want to see them in the back, see Steve or see Mel in the back, Steve's waiting to see him, to pick up your tickets for that raffle.
All right, so our next one is the drawing of the hat. So we did have 2 hats. We flipped a coin. The hat that's going out tonight is the camel hat. Okay, so that one is beautiful. I have it here with me. Thank you to Bill for obtaining that for us. And at the same time, the red one, we're going to rethink how we're going to promote and raffle that one off, because there's not a lot of tickets sold. So now's your chance to get one of those hats. Would you like to wear that at that rally? So please purchase that tonight. See Jackie, Doreen, or Emily in the back.
I put them away. All right, firearm holds for 50 States book is available in the back. Purchase it from the Second Amendment Committee back at their table. The regular price is $15.95. We are selling that book for $12.95 tonight. So stop back and see Mel or see Steve in the back. Now, if you travel across state lines, or you go camping, or you can get in trouble like I can because I carry, I'm not going to say it though. This book is for you. It also makes a great gift. Sales support the Lehigh Valley Second Amendment Committee. All right, now most of you know about the chips that we sell. We have them over here at the table, the membership table over here. If you don't have cash on you to donate in the buckets, or you want to buy something like the raffle tickets in the back, you may buy a chip in whatever $10 amount that you want, and you use those chips to purchase items or put them in the buckets. However you would like to use them.
All right, so on the 19th of this month, a Friday, I have a group of 40 of us, my troop and a neighboring troop. We are going to West Point, folks, to train with the cadets. It's not at their academy, it's their training facility up in New York. That's why I sell these brownies, cannolis, and crumb cakes. The cannolis we sell for $3. If you go to restaurants now, they're selling them for $4 or $5. So what I use the money for is to rent the vans, which I'm renting 2. It's costing me over $1,000. And then to buy some groceries, and those boys can eat. Let me tell you something. They can empty any tray. I was thinking of taking them to the Hotel Bethlehem on one of those Sunday brunches. Anyway, so if you can help me out at all at the cakes and cannolis table to purchase some cakes and cannolis or a donation, help me get them to West Point. These cadets, ladies and gentlemen, okay, so there are lady cadets and male cadets, obviously. They are examples of what I'm hoping my scouts to become. Well-mannered, yes sir, no sir, affirmative sir, and they're only a few years older. So the objective is to get some of those Boy Scouts to apply for West Point. I had one scout actually did that, failed the physical. He had everything else. So he's going to reapply next year. So again, if you can help me out, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much for your consideration of getting my boys to West Point. All right, so we have the lanyards, and so make sure you go back to the merchandise table. We have seat cushions, rally flags, the lanyards, they're the yellow ones. Again, we're expecting and asking you to kindly wear your lanyard with your name tag. It helps us identify who are members and who are not members. So those yellow tags, Melissa has them in the back on sale for how much, Melissa? $2. Next one, U.S. Law Shield. If you have a handgun and they break into your house, even if you use that handgun to defend yourself, you're going to go into court and you're going to face, unfortunately, a lawyer. That's just the way it is. If you get in a fist fight, U.S. Law Shield can protect you. You know how people are out there nowadays. So it's against us. For under $200, I think it's about $150 for the membership. They cover you not for 12 months, but with the LVTP.org, I think that's our code. It's on a card. You get an additional 2 months. It's the best investment you can have, folks. Jim?
All right, support the troops. Everyone is familiar, if they come to every meeting, that Valerie Ferguson gets up here and gives her little speech about supporting the troops and what she does. I do not think Valerie is here tonight, but we want to thank her for everything that she does for the troops.
All right, the next one Jim's going to go through this. We have our primary election coming up Tuesday, April 23rd. He's going to read this off for you.
All right, we want to, if you would please vote for these Lehigh Valley Tea Party members running for election. State House seat, Zach Halkins. And Zach, I think, is here.
Yeah, you're here.
Zach is over here. Don't forget to vote for Zach. Also, the delegates running are Tom Carroll, Patrick Coverage, and Jackie Rivera. Jackie is here. I don't think Tom Carroll's here anywhere.
Yes, he is.
I was going to say, I don't hear him.
Alternate delegates?
The alternate delegates are Ian Covey and Robert Smith. So make sure you get out and vote for these on these fine people on the 23rd. Right, Jack?
All right, so we want to thank Bobby Gunther Walsh. We contacted him, I believe, last week, and he interviewed our two guest speakers tonight, Vince Feldman and John. In Spanish, we say Juan Suarez, and he also made plugs for the Lehigh Valley Tea Party. So we encourage you to listen to him. He's on every weekday from 5 to 10 a.m., and that's on 790 WAB. So thank you, Gunther. We also want to thank Bruce Haynes. Bruce was kind enough to have breakfast with Juan and I today, and he told me, I guess this is okay. We have an announcement. He is having the hotel up now opening an extended stay suites. So when I left breakfast today, I know I have some relatives that didn't want to come over and stay for a long time, and they're not illegals, but they're politically on the other side. So if you have those relatives. But we want to thank Bruce for always being so accommodating to the Lehigh Valley Tea Party and also the NCRC, Northampton County Public Utility. We always have our chairman's dinner over there. It's a wonderful establishment, so we want to thank Bruce and the hotel. Okay.
All right, it's time for our main speakers. The first speaker tonight is Vince Feldman. Now, Vince was on Bobby Gunther this morning. And Vince, are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
Hold on.
Have the back on.
Traveling out of Philadelphia, so it's appropriate.
Thank you very much for coming, for having me today. I'm happy to be here. My name is Vince Feldman. I'm the chapter president for Children's Health Defense. As how many people know, I've heard of this organization, Children's Health Defense. Okay, so we got a few, and we'll get them all tonight, right? We'll go to the next slide. Children's Health Defense originally began as a World Mercury Project. Robert Kennedy Jr. is our founder. He founded World Mercury Project and helped form the River Keepers. And it's one of the reasons why you can fish in the Hudson and then take the fish home and eat. There's not too many rivers in Pennsylvania where you can do that. The World Mercury Project became Children's Health Defense in about six years ago. And we're a much more holistic organization, environmental protection organization, trying to discover and educate and advocate against environmental toxins and insults to our bodies, particularly our children, and as well as litigate against those industries and agencies of the government that are trying to poison us. I'm here tonight to talk about this book. Is called The Wuhan Cover-Up, and the Terrifying Bioweapons Arms Race. This book came about, I don't know if you've heard this book. This was a bestseller back during the COVID crisis. And Robert Kennedy Jr. put together a book that has like 2,000 footnotes. And there was so much information there, I had to put the text to the edge of the paper. But when the information about the cover-up and the lab leaks started to come out, he wanted to put that in the book, but it was still coming. It didn't hold up publication. So that was the result. This is like a sequel of this book. This is a definitive book on what happened with the COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. I'd like to just read a couple blurbs. Get that slipping off the desk here. So I started like what Tucker Carlson's called this. This will scare the hell out of you. The scariest part is it's true. Professor Francis Boyle, who is the author of the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act, has 3 advanced degrees from Harvard. He said the Wuhan cover-up will blow out of the water the international disinformation campaign by U.S. and Chinese government officials and their bribed scientists that COVID-19 somehow magically jumped out of the Wuhan wet market. Kennedy's book will provide the ammunition needed for us lawyers to hold them all legally accountable for this Nuremberg crime against humanity. And we, in Children's Health Defense, are working with Francis Boyle to look for avenues to prosecute for murder for this crisis. And we'll I'll give you one more quote, because a lot of people cannot handle this information psychologically. It's one of the worst crimes we've ever seen in the history of mankind. It's diabolical. There's an author, a best-selling author named Gavin DeBecker, and he wrote a best-selling book called The Gift of Fear back in the late 90s. He said this about the book. RFK Jr.'s painstaking research reveals facts that anyone can confirm, but few people can accept. Bioweapons research and production has a dark history many people would want to wish away. Kennedy's compelling book makes that impossible. This book has 100 pages of footnotes and like 6-point text, and makes it really difficult to refute this evidence, and this is why you've heard nothing about this book. Okay, that's the kind of reviews we expect to get. What's difficult, the first 100 pages of this book deals with a very dark history of the United States. And I don't have time to really go into that, but I'd like to point out David Talbot's book, The Devil's Chessboard, discusses how the Nazis actually didn't lose the war. They changed sides. The Germans lost the war. The Nazis were, by the thousands, repatriated to the United States and exonerated for many of their crimes, particularly in the bioweapons industries and the death sciences they were involved in. This book, The Nazis Next Door, Eric Lichtau won the Pulitzer Prize twice. He's a first-rate investigative journalist author. He looked into the fact that we do not, besides Congress passing a law requiring the disclosure of this program, of this Nazi repatriation program, and even Bill Clinton did an executive order to back up that law in 1999. The CIA still refuses to release these files on their exoneration program, and basically they accommodated and put these scientists, doctors, SS, Waffen SS, all throughout American society, in intelligence, the Defense Department, institutions, academic, and in the pharmaceutical and industrial industries. I'll go quick. That's just one example. You can go to the next slide. Andy, thanks. One of the worst cases outlined in the book is Dr. General Shiraishi, who was in charge of Unit 731 in Manchuria, China, when Japan was at war with China in the 30s. The Japanese did not have access to a lot of petrochemical feedstocks for chemical weapons, so they moved to a biological weapons program, killed 500,000 Chinese with the biological weapons they had. They did 3,000 vivisections on live humans, amongst many GIs, American GIs. And the United States actually exonerated all these scientists and people working in the Unit 731, got all their papers, cultures, and transported them to the United States. They actually used Unit 731 in Korea. And we don't know the full extent of what that was, but there's a lot of UN reports about biological weapons use there. So there's a terrible history there. Go to the next slide. This is just a brief, there's been a creeping Nazi playbook, and this is what we need to really worry about is, actually, if you saw what happened in the Canadian Parliament a couple months ago with the honoring of a Waffen-SS soldier, and with a standing ovation. This is the type of situation, the development of decades of accepting this methodology and ideology has sort of infiltrated the culture. And this is something Bobby talks about in this book. Again, I'm not up here in any political capacity. I'm here just for the research that our chairman on leave, he's got other business right now, but our chairman on leave has put together in this book. But as you can see, it's a growing list, and it's growing, and it's been growing exponentially in the last few years. And I'm heartened that so many people are waking up to it, particularly on this side of the political aisle. What Bobby says is, one of the costs of engaging in a bioweapons arms race is the moral damage to the entire society as medicine and its practitioners turn away from health and against humanity. But I get to the one, I missed the slide. The programs had waxed and waned. After World War II, Fort Detrick was set up with a lot of the Nazi scientists. And you start to see, by the time we get to the late 60s, the biological weapons program had reached parity with the nuclear program, and they calculated that they could kill the entire population of the United States for 29 cents a person. At that point, Richard Nixon became cognizant of this. He did an executive order to end the bioweapons program. He actually promulgated a treaty that was signed several years later. He went to Fort Detrick and shut down the bioweapons program. Unfortunately, the CIA smuggled out their cultures, and the smallpox is something they still have this today. The anthrax attack, which had like fraternity, frat boy-like qualities to it, because the targets of some of the first targets of it were actually the photo editors who had published the Bush twins in drunken situations. But you also had the targeting of politicians in the Senate who would hold up the Patriot Act. I hate to say that word, Patriot Act, but it's so unfortunate. There's a network of DARPA. DARPA actually was originally Project Paperclip. It became the Advanced Research Projects Agency, and then later became the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. But it originates in the CIA's Paperclip program. MK Ultra. But this is also integrated fully into the academic and pharmaceutical industries, which is sort of the hallmark of what the Japanese did. They modeled it after how they integrated all their academics, military intelligence, and the pharmaceutical people. Gain-of-function research is the rebranding, is basically a rebranding of biological weapons program. That's the term that's sort of now used instead of bioweapons research. So it's defined as studies that increase the pathogenicity and transmissibility of microbes. And the WHO treaty, which I want to talk about too, that's going to be voted on in May, and that everyone needs to know about it here, incentivizes gain of function. And previous slides, this is another presentation, the WHO treaty will demand proliferation of this gain of function research. It actually mandates countries to collect suspect highly pathogenic viruses that will then be taken and developed. The gain of function increases this, right? Turns them into bioweapons. There's never been any civilian real use for this. There's no successes in the 25, 30 years that it's been going on. Genetic modification, CRISPR, those sort of technologies, synthetic biology, these have all made these technologies far more potent and much more easier to do, you know, being able to, basically you can develop a pathogenic germ, right, on a computer and produce it pretty quickly now. In the years running up to the COVID crisis, so I'm talking about it, you know, actually during the Obama administration right through to 2019, scientists were ringing the bell. You see tons of papers warning about this gain of function research to the tune of that there was a massive leaks. Go to the next slide. There are about 2 to 3 leaks from BSL-4 labs. These are high security bioweapons labs or where they deal with dangerous subjects. There's at least 2 or 3 leaks a week, and there were some serious leaks back in 2013 that led scientists to demand Obama do a moratorium on gain of function, which he did. That unfortunately was lifted in 2017. Under Trump's watch, did not know about it. It was Dr. Francis Collins and Dr. Fauci actually bypassed the normal protocols and had the gain of function moratorium lifted. But during that moratorium, they outsourced the labs to Ukraine, Georgia, the former Soviet Republic of Georgia, and China, places where they could do this research. And that's partly why you start to see the work done in China. They also wanted to gain access to the Chinese labs, have some insight into what's going over there. Chinese were all too happy to have that research brought over. Ralph Barrett actually could be tried as a traitor. You know, Kennedy does not pull any punches here. They could sue him. And I think Joe Rogan said they would sue him if this wasn't true. Says this guy's a traitor. He probably developed the COVID-19 virus. He also developed the COVID coronavirus to create heart attacks, greater cardiac activity from it. He also created no-seum techniques where you could hide the hand of the genetic manipulation in there so it would look more natural. There it is, headline in Scientific America from 2017, lifting that moratorium. You know, but the decision to lift the moratorium did not sit well with scientists, and again, they raised these, and you'll see lots of editorials in the Lancet and Nature saying, hey, we've got to stop this. This could be the end of humanity if we let this go. So the warnings were there all the way up, right until 2019. In August 2019, there was a massive leak out of Fort Detrick, so bad that they had to shut the whole facility down for months. In Cy Hersh's 1968 book, he's quoted a leading government scientist saying, perverse research at Fort Detrick is disease control in reverse. Dr. Fauci knew that even the world's best operated and most vigorously managed lab had difficulties handling these lethal microbes when operating under the direct supervision of U.S. regulatory officials. In July 2019, just months before COVID began circulating, the CDC issued a cease and desist order halting operations at the lab in Detrick. And there is cases of illness erupting around the lab in Frederick, Maryland. The whole idea of pandemic preparedness research is basically cover for bioweapons program, trying to legitimize it. They've thrown so much money, $5 to $6 billion a year since the anthrax attacks, which, anthrax that was weaponized at trillion spores per gram with the silicone coated. Couldn't come from nowhere else. It was definitely a U.S. bioweapons project, and that stuff still exists. They have not destroyed that. But this is just, in 2008 alone, there were 173 releases that led to 895 individuals coming down with some sort of illness from this. This gain-of-function research is extremely dangerous and regularly leads to disastrous lab leaks, which sicken and sometimes kill those exposed to the pathogens. While COVID-19 was the most consequential lab leak, many others preceded it. And so we have actually, a lot of scientists said Ebola was generated in this way. And you also have to remember that there's a dual-use technology. You do not develop a biological weapon without an antidote or countermeasure. The vaccines are the countermeasures, or supposed to be. We've also traced the Lyme disease to, scientists have traced that Lyme disease to a Nazi scientist who actually worked with Rockefeller before the war. Rockefeller Institute, went to Germany, worked in with Hermann Göring under the biological weapons program there. Then he was brought back here and worked on Lyme disease, on tick-borne illnesses here in the areas near Plum Island, Connecticut, where the Lyme disease came out. But natural origin theorists believe the wet market in Wuhan is the place of origin for a zoonotic source. Of the over 800 tests the Chinese made at the Wuhan market, the only positive tests were found in human subjects. There was no infected animals found at that market. The SARS-CoV-2, which is developed from a bat virus, cannot infect bats. They've not been able to find an infected bat. There's no evidence of natural origin that hasn't been shown. So when you hear that, it's a lot of arm waving trying to distract you. We actually know that the Wuhan lab had a serious leak in November, and one of the top scientists that worked under Xi Jinping, the bat lady woman who's in charge of the coronavirus research in China, got seriously ill and was hospitalized. I think several other scientists were hospitalized in November. That Wuhan Virology Institute is right on the subway line that goes to the wet market and right to the airport. So there's a good enough evidence to suggest that that's where it came from. In 2018, the State Department did a cable warning that this lab was a significantly dangerous lab for research, but the United States kept funding millions of dollars of research there on fact coronaviruses, regardless of those leaks and those warnings from the State Department. We get to the COVID vaccine, the countermeasure. It's a military countermeasure. The whole warp speed exercise was 100% military. The pharmaceutical industry really just gave cover, product brand name recognition to the vaccines. Moderna was started up by the CIA through QIntel, their investment arm, and then funded by DARPA, and primarily to produce mRNA therapies. Moderna didn't have a product for 10 years of existence until the mRNA vaccine, the COVID vaccine. Dr. Jeffrey Sachs was asked by The Lancet to do a commission. He clearly believes that this was a lab leak, man-made virus. He concluded that first, we need an independent scientific investigation in which all the laboratories involved in the U.S. and China fully open their books and records to independent investigators. The second is a worldwide halt on gain-of-function research until an independent global scientific bodies set safety ground rules for this. There's no guidelines, there's no rules. The third is for the UN General Assembly to establish rigorous legal and financial accountability for governments that violate international safety norms through dangerous research activities that threaten the health and security of the rest of the world. Next one. But we have to realize that WHO is working absolutely opposite to that. They want to open up gain of function to the whole world, demanding genomic sequencing labs in countries that can't even test urine properly. There's a HHS Secretary Robert Kavlik. We think vaccine research resulted in the pandemic, that vaccine research was the proximal cause. Another prime suspect is Peter Daszak, who was funding that Wuhan lab coronavirus research. He put a paper to the Pentagon, to DARPA. They actually turned it down because they generally want to hide this with Fauci and NIH and others. They don't want to deal with this directly. They don't want the connection. They had that research rejected, but at the same time they had other grants. They were working with the Wuhan lab to produce exactly this. They created a furin cleavage site in the virus, which is clearly, it doesn't occur in any bats or whatsoever, that would make it more infectious, the human lung tissue. Bobby, a quote from the book, when scientists at Wuhan lab conducted experiments in 2018, to their surprise, this is Daszak's experiments they were doing, they were supposed to report to the NIH any increase in pathogenicity over 10 times normal had to be reported and halt the operation completely. In China, they were able to get a 10,000 times increase in infectivity and pathogenicity. Okay, I'm going to just jump. When in April 2018, Daszak boasted of a success in EcoHealth four-year report. And regardless, Fauci kept funding them money, even though they knew what was going on there. Luckily, Florida has banned gain-of-function research. It's the only state. And if you talk to your representatives, let them know, inform them about this. We can ban it here. But we also have to, we could probably do better making sure we exit the WHO. And we do that as soon as possible. They are working on establishing international health regulations. That's the bill. That's the model legislation. So just look up that Florida gain-of-function ban, and you'll have stuff that you can give to your representative and educate them on this. Next one. Exit the WHO, right? They are completely captured by the pharmaceutical industry through the proxies and Bill Gates, Wellcome Trust, Gavi. That's all drug money. They're going after the First Amendment. They cannot have free speech and be able to make this work. So if you listen to the WHO, they're talking about disinformation, they gotta stop it, so the pandemic treaty, one of the first lines they have in there is to control social media, to control talk about medical subject matter. We know what that can do, right? That kills people. We can skip that one. We can skip that one too. This idea of pandemics is completely fabricated. So if you look at in the 20th century, there was basically the Spanish flu that happened before antibiotics, IVs, ICUs. I mean, you don't have. It couldn't happen today, and it was a pneumonia too that they had. The pandemics of 57, 68, 2009, they weren't really anything to write home about. SARS-CoV-2 was made in the lab. The only question is, was it deliberately released or was it accidentally released? They knew it was something like this was going to happen. The wet market theories cover, we know how to deal with pandemics, and it takes doctors, nurses, frontline people, and that's the way we were in the battle of COVID. The doctors in the field who were putting their lives at risk were the ones who figured out how to treat people. It wasn't coming from people like Fauci who never treated a person himself. Next one. So realize that in the 20th century, you have essentially, they talk about, oh my God, the pandemic. in just 23 years, 24 years, we've had all of these. And this is going to keep coming. If this WHO amendment treaty comes through and the international health regulations come through, we're going to have a pandemic almost every year, probably all the time. This is like the war on terror. This is the biosecurity agenda. And so I implore you, make yourself educated, talk about this, talk to your legislators about that, make sure they understand what this is. If you have a good meeting with a legislator or federal representatives, I can get you a book. I have a couple books of these available here. They're also available at the pa.childrenshealthevents.org website, where we have it for a donation of $25. Yeah, I can skip that one. I think this is some part of the amendments. So there's a lot of legislation. Louisiana just passed one, exit the WHO. They will not abide by any of these regulations that have come through. There's legislation in the Senate right now in Washington to make sure that anything that comes out of the WHO must be ratified in the Senate. They don't want it to sneak by and just become law here. It's completely unconstitutional. There have been 3 Supreme Court cases that have put treaties above federal law. So you need to be aware of it. Door to Freedom is Merle Nass. Dr. Merle Nass is an incredible scientist and doctor. She has created this website, Door to Freedom, doortofreedom.org. There's a lot of informational material there and things you can bring to legislators to inform them. Of course, the Defender is the Children's Health Defense News Organization. We have an advisory board of 200 doctors, lawyers, and scientists to ensure that we have not released a bad fact yet. If you look up Wikipedia or whatever, we just get defamation. That's all they can do. They can only name, call, and sling mud. They cannot affect us because we have a quality assurance that's better than most. I don't know what, but it's better than most. Okay. That's it. Thank you so much. I got 1 minute and a half for questions. Thank you. You can certainly ask me questions here. Thank you. 1, 2.
Can you give us a status on Dr. Fauci, the lab in China, the funding of gain-of-function research, and hopefully there's no development?
It's like everything else. They will not back down, until there's a prosecution. Everything's Jim Dandy. That's unfortunate. Like the COVID vaccine is still safe and effective, although the government has admitted they can't say that about emergency use authorization.
Are they claiming that the reason why we're doing this gain-of-function research is because the Russians and the Chinese and other bad actors are doing it and we have to do it? It would be nice to be able to say that, but we're the leaders here. We started this arms race as far as we can tell. And if you look at it now, that's what it seems like. It was quite, the labs in Ukraine are quite an intriguing event that we discovered recently. Is this perhaps part of the reason why the BRICS countries, Russia, China, and the rest of the BRICS, want to take down the United States?
I think they're trying to work for a multipolar world. I don't know, if they're in an adversarial position. They would say that they're just reacting to the fact that they need financial transaction freedom. And by weaponizing the dollar, it kind of sets them apart. But I'd like to say, actually, Children's Health Defense just sued the National Park Service for financial transaction freedom, because they wouldn't take cash anymore. So in about 6 or 8 parks, that you can't use cash. And we just filed a lawsuit about 3 weeks ago, and we're looking forward to fighting that. We're about financial transaction freedom, freedom to choose your own food, freedom of your own medical, care, and freedom of speech.
Last question over here.
Besides reading the book that Robert Kennedy wrote, how can we stay on top of what's going on since it seems to be ever evolving?
Yeah, those two websites have showed you well. If you go to Children's Health Defense, we have a whole science library as well. And we have the Defender, which is our news outlet. And we have the door to freedom.org is where you can work on the Exit the Who program. You know, we are making inroads. The fact that they want to cancel social media and have controls in the way people speak is a sign that they can't get this passed if they can't muzzle and censor people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bishop Belvin, thank you very much for being here. It's quite informative. I find it really informative. There's a lot of stuff in there that I had no idea that was going on. But of course, they keep us in the dark. They don't want us to know. They just want to kill us. Sorry to say that. All right, now, next thing is the buckets that are on the table. You can see the red buckets on the table. If you would donate in those buckets to help us pay for the meeting expenses and what we have to go through, and we ask for $10 a person. If you're short on cash, of course, you can always use the chips that I talked about earlier.
Yes, and at this time, we're going to take a break. And please remember to get those raffle tickets if you want those VIP tickets. Remember to support the Boy Scouts going to West Point by purchasing some cakes, candles, or a donation. We have our merchandise over there with the duck raffle. And don't forget, if you're not a member, please come and join. Enjoy your break.
I have a question. How many of your children know that you are here? Where are your children? You know, we have one child here tonight, that's Zach. But listen, talk to your children, talk to your grandchildren, and see if you can't get them out to the meetings. Because we would like to get the younger people involved in what we do here. Now, you bring the younger people in, we'll make room for them. All right, next up on the agenda, we have a gentleman here that is going to speak to us on a very, very important subject. A subject that may be down the road for us and we don't want to hear it. All right, this time I'd like to bring to the stage our friend with the red tie, Juan. Thank you very much.
Well, my name is John Schwartz. I'm Executive Director of the Center for a Free Cuba. And I wanted to begin this conversation with a brief reflection on the importance of keeping a republic. September 17, 1787, when the Constitutional Convention was in place, Benjamin Franklin was asked by Elizabeth Willing Powell a question. Well, doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy? And he responded, a republic if you can keep it. Sadly, Cubans had a republic from 1902 to 1952. They had gone through a colonial experience from 1492 to 1902. And for 50 years, they had a republic, a rising standard of living, multiple elections and political parties. And then they lost it. And hopefully we'll find the screen momentarily. Between 1902 and 1952, there were 17 different rulers in Cuba. Then, in 1952, Fulgencio Batista organized a coup, and from 1952 to 1958, there was a dictatorship. Next slide, please. And the Castro brothers, Fidel and Raul there on the right, promised that they would restore democracy by removing Fulgencio Batista from power. And what we got, go to the next slide, was they're taking over in 1959, and from 1959 to today, the Castro family has ruled Cuba. First by Fidel Castro, and to the present day, his brother Raul, who's been there running the show since 2006. This has had dire consequences for the Cuban people. It has meant a decline in living standards, an absence of freedom, and I think it's important to explore exactly what happened. In the first months of 1959, while Fidel Castro was proclaiming himself a Jeffersonian Democrat, he was quietly terrorizing first independent journalists, newspaper outlets, radio stations, television stations, warning them that if they reported anything critical, they'd be killed. And within a year, all those stations were taken over and monopolized by the Communist Party of Cuba. Today, there's only one legal political party in Cuba, and there's only been one legal political party since '59, that is the Cuban Communist Party. Religious freedom in Cuba was shut down in 1960. Priests were rounded up along with nuns, put on a boat at gunpoint, and directed out of the country. The boat's name was Covadonga. Christmas was outlawed in 1969. It did not return to Cuba until 1998, and that was negotiated by Pope John Paul II in exchange for his visit that year. And Easter was negotiated a few years later by Pope Benedict XVI. Now, this past month in March, there were protests in Cuba. So Holy Week this year, where in prior years, thanks to the work of Pope Benedict XVI and Pope John Paul II, there were processions on Holy Week. They were shut down this year. I feared that they would turn into large-scale protests. Cuba has had large-scale protests over the last several years, especially beginning July 2021. And you can see here, you saw the picture before of them when they were younger, but that was them in 2012. Fidel there hunched over, and his younger brother Raul. So 17 different rulers from 1902 to 1952, as opposed to 1952 from 2 rulers between 1952 and the present day. 65 years. Next, please. Keep going. Revolutionary terror, what I was going to show you was a video of a show trial in Cuba where a person is directed by a revolutionary tribunal where there is no defense. The defense attorney works for the dictatorship, says you're terribly guilty, please show some mercy to them and give them a life sentence instead of execution. They'd be taken out and shot and dumped in an open pit. Now, I've been talking about what this has meant for the Cuban people, but for the world, this regime has also had a negative impact. The Tricontinental, January of 1966, the Castro regime hosted terrorists from Africa, the Americas, and Asia to coordinate efforts to overthrow democracies around the world. And they brought together terrorist groups in Havana, and afterwards started training them in Havana and also in North Africa and Algeria and Libya for decades. And in the Cuban case, you saw groups like the FALN, the ELN, the Macheteros that were carrying out terrorist attacks in Latin America, but also in the case of the FALN and the Puerto Rican Macheteros, that also meant terrorist attacks in the United States. One of them, which I will highlight, is the Wall Street bomb that went off in January 24th of 1975, killed 4, wounded over 43 in the historic Tavern Club, which was the tavern, the Francis Tavern, was a tavern that went back to revolutionary times and George Washington had visited. So that was one of the reasons it was targeted and blown up by these Puerto Rican terrorists. The FALN, the Macheteros, are a group that was formed, financed, and backed by Havana. The bomber who was tried and convicted in an American court, escaped and fled to Cuba, and he's still being harbored there today. The gentleman that I would have had you seeing on the screen, Joseph Connor, is the son of one of the four men killed, Frank Connor, talked exactly about that and how Democrats like Bill Clinton and later Obama released a number of those Puerto Rican terrorists, including some of them that were unrepentant. One of them actually got a parade in Cuba and was given an award shortly after his release, his commutation. There is a current migration crisis. Over 500,000 Cubans have left the island since 2021 and entered the United States. Keep going. There are three fundamental reasons as to why this is taking place. Massive political repression, which I mentioned. There have been tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Cubans that have gone out to protest, especially since July 2021. There are over 1,000 political prisoners currently. Some of these people are human rights defenders. There's a case of a father and daughter, Dailina Bagro, Felix Navarro. They literally were jailed and sentenced to 9 and 8 years in prison for trying to find out about how their compatriots were faring who were locked up during the protests. So massive political repression is driving this exodus. An economic crisis caused by failed communist central planning, which is ongoing. They don't allow farmers to farm in Cuba. The communists are going to blend in the United States and talk about a blockade, but the reality is that the chicken that is eaten in Cuba is not grown in Cuba. It's imported from the United States from Tyson Chicken. The Cuban government purchased $400 million in agricultural products from the U.S. in 2023 alone. What they're looking for is for you taxpayers to subsidize the dictatorship like the Europeans and the Canadians are already doing. Third, the communists are weaponizing migration. Next screen, please. Cuba has had a permanent crisis, but in terms of migration, there's an interesting correlation. Over the past 6 decades, Cubans fled on rafts across the border straits, freedom flights, and many fly to Nicaragua and trek through hundreds of miles of jungle to the U.S.-Mexican border. You see Camarioca, 1965, Mariel, 1980, Bausetto crisis in 1994, and the Central American exodus of 2016, and the ongoing one. Let me ask you a question. What does all this have in common? Someone can answer for me. Somebody said Democrats. Why? Huh? Why? Well, what I'm pointing out is if you look at Camarioca 1965, that's the Johnson administration. Mariel 1980, Carter. Bausetto crisis, Clinton. Central American exodus 2016, Obama. The current exodus, Biden. There are no Republican names in that list over the last 65 years. Why?
Whether they vote Democrat for their lifetime or they're just counted by the census, it adds to the number of representatives, right?
That it does, but the question is, why is it that you're having these crises? And part of it is that they're being weaponized by Havana. Why does Havana do it during Democratic administrations? Because Carter, Clinton, Obama, and Biden have had policies where they tried to do outreach to the Cuban dictatorship, and the Cuban dictatorship perceives that as weakness. So in the case of Fidel Castro in 1980, for example, with Mr. Carter, he was embarrassed with the initial wave of 125,000 Cubans coming out. So what did he do? His bodyguard wrote a book where he outlined how Fidel Castro really sat down, got a list of prisoners, and wanted to make sure he wasn't sending political prisoners over. About 15% of that exodus in 1980 were serial killers, mental patients, rapists, psychopaths, and they were purposely sent over to see and to cast disrepute on the Great Report. But there was still, the Carter administration was not able to screen and control, and that was one of the factors that led to Bill Clinton losing his governorship in 1980 and Carter losing his seat in the White House because of the riots that broke out in Arkansas and the crime wave that hit Florida, it was all over the newspapers, as many of you will remember. Now, these migration outflows, it's a feature of communism. In the case of Germany, 12 million Germans fled to Austria and West Germany to avoid life under communism. In East Germany, they built the Berlin Wall to keep people in, not out. But let me just underscore it. If we look, 1980 to 2023, you have the Mario Bola, 125,000, federal crisis under Clinton, and then with Obama, between fiscal 24 2016, 123,000 Cubans entered. Last year with Mr. Trump, you can see it's a very small number. And then the first year with Biden, it bumps up to larger numbers even in the 94 federal crisis. And this is 22 and 23, over 200,000 a year.
Twin Towers. Are they prisoners and mental patients in that recent?
We don't know because the border's open. There are no controls, there's no screening. It's just this mass migration. And the 500,000 Cubans is only part of it. What happened was, November, after the debacle of Afghanistan, Havana saw that as weakness. And they opened up with Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua. They lifted the visa requirements for Cubans to enter Nicaragua. They charged the Cubans an arm and a leg to fly from Havana to Managua, so they had to sell their homes and all their belongings. To give you an idea, the tickets were around 3,000 from Havana to Managua. Similar distance, Miami to Managua is about $300, so it's a markup of 100%. So they were having a preference for people to leave and enriching the communist nomenclature in Cuba and creating a problem for the United States at the border. Now, Cubans that don't go by that route, that try to go directly through the Florida Straits, where the communists don't get a cut, they're a much different outcome. This was July 13th of 1994. The Teresa de Marzo tugboat, some families tried to flee aboard the tugboat, and they were sunk by government vessels. A good chunk of them were children and young people, ranging from age 5 to 22, and some of their parents slaughtered. And it was a premeditated killing. The Cuban government actually learned about this ahead of time. They could have stopped them before they left, but they let them leave to carry out the massacre and send a cautionary message to other Cubans. In 1980, Castro was referring to those who were trying to leave as worms, scum, which was ultimately trying to mix in the criminal element, but he also sent out his thugs to beat people to death and lynch them. 2015, this gentleman tried to leave on a raft and was shot in the back by secret police in Cuba. This was just October 28th of 2022. Family tried to flee on a boat. The Cuban Coast Guard ship purposely rammed and sank the boat, killing the people you see there, including a 2-year-old. One of the survivors, Soso Gonzalez, told a newspaper, when we passed them by, a Cuban Coast Guard officer said, "Now I'm going to split them in half," and then he rammed us. At that point, Ms. Soso said she hit her head and lost consciousness, and her daughter slipped away. Okay. So that's the reality that comes with the migration crisis and the weaponizing of migration to get concessions. And they got them from Mr. Clinton, who opened up a lottery system that filled South Florida with communists. Mr. Obama took Cuba off the list of state sponsors of terrorism. Was also humiliated on his way out in January of 2021. Raul Castro presided over a parade with soldiers chanting that they would shoot Obama so many times in the head that they'd make him a lead hat. Yet you have Democrats trying to claim that the Obama-Cuba policy was some sort of success. And I don't know how many of you saw the 60 Minutes piece of the Havana Syndrome. Do you think that the Cuban intelligence service, which is actually better than the KGB, didn't know what the Russians were doing in Cuba when they were aiming their weapons at U.S. diplomats and they were left brain damaged? This, I guess we do have the videos. This is a revolutionary port, 1959 in Cuba. And you see the defendant sitting there, and that's the judge with his armband, the July 26th movement. The defendant standing, making a statement. His defense attorney, who's also a revolutionary who supports the regime, basically pointing out his guilt. They read out the death penalty.
That was Che Guevara, right?
No, that's another. Well, Che Guevara was in charge of the Cabaña prison and carried out a large number of executions in '59. This is one of the revolutionary tribunals, and this is where he's taken out and shot. Now, the communists filmed these and showed them around at the beginning of the revolution to strike terror into the population by showing them what happened of questioning the revolution. So this was something the average Cuban was seeing in their theaters in 1959. These are protests in Cuba. This was in 2022. Listen. They're screaming libertad, liberty. There are currently over 1,000 political prisoners for doing just that. And this is a regime response. What they're doing by filming this is a punishable offense in Cuba. There were some folks that actually witnessed the police in Cuba shooting a black man in the back just for filming it. They got over 10 years in prison. And let's pause there for a moment. There is no freedom of association, no freedom of speech, no independent, there's no independent press in Cuba. There's an underground press that's illegal, that's able to smuggle stuff out, but they're pursued by the secret police. And if you're a true believer in the system, there are consequences to that. This is Victims of Communism, Soleil's story. She was a member of the regime that was elected to a local municipality and thought she represented her constituency, and it cost her a lot. You guys see the subtitles? Actually, let's do something. Let's move to the next video. Her story is that she tried to reopen a school because kids were having to walk several miles each way each day. She put enough pressure on the regime that they did it, but then they identified her as a leader, which meant she was a problem. End of story. They sent a thug to attack her with a machete. She lost a hand, the use of her knees. Nearly lost her other arm, which had deep cuts and down into her tendons. Her doctors told her she wanted to get treatment. She had to do it outside of the country because the secret police had told them not to treat her. So she had to come to the U.S. to get treatment. This last story is Rosa Maria Payá and Osvaldo Payá. These are Cuban dissidents that challenged the regime using legal processes within the existing constitution. Let's see what that cost them. Thank you. You got it.
I was selecting that to run to the space step. If that is to say the word, Castro is responsible for the miserable situation. My name is Maria Payán, and I am experience father. I was born in Havana in 1989, in the middle of communist oppression. I remember my childhood as a happy time, actually. My parents always would work to keep our lives as normal as they could. That environment made me feel secure in a way, protected. That reality, I now understand, made us underestimate them. You know that the evil is there. You know about the death threat, but you don't actually believe that it's going to happen to you. That was the difference between my understanding and my father's understanding. My father is Oswaldo Payán, a leader of the opposition against the demonstration. When Fidel Castro got to power in 1969, they just behaved like a mafia, like criminals in power. They abolished civil liberties and said, we don't have to make elections because they're very local, so we don't have to prove that. Anyone with an alternative expression to the communist ideas was the subject of persecution. People that had long hair, or that were gay or religious, ended up in forced labor camps, put in jail or killed. Communists mutilated the human soul in order to be able to control the society. Today it's hard to imagine, but the oppression hasn't ended. My father and I, we had normal arguments. My father has the teenage girl, but the threats of the Cuban executive were always part of the conversation. It's totally different. Every dimension of your life is controlled by another force, different from your will, your feelings, your decisions. For my father, the goal was to transform that reality peacefully into a more democratic system by moving hearts and moving will.
La democracia es para todas las personas, pues que renazca.
He created a movement to confront all these things in the regime that he understood that were bad. I remember people stopping my father just to say thank you or to say hi in the middle of the street and to do it publicly. That's something that you don't do in a totalitarian regime. He had such a big love that was enough to be shared with the entire Cuban people. The campaign get stronger and stronger and stronger, and then our car started to be followed by security agents with walkie-talkies. My father was very aware of the danger around us, but I had that illusion that my father was protected by his public image, by the international community, by all the work he was doing. That was not the reality. The Castro brothers, they had other plans for him. July 22nd, 2012, my father left. He campaigned for the opposition. 8 hours later, my mother got a text message. There's been a crash. Volunteers from the campaign safety car hit them from behind and help. We are surrounded by the military. The security were doing anything in their power to prevent us access to what had happened to my father. This was an orchestrated attack. The police was everywhere persecuting us. Finally, we learned that my father was dead. He was killed by the Cuban regime. When we arrived at the funeral, there was a huge crowd there. The people came together with a lot of sadness, but also this feeling of pride for my father.
Por la esperanza de que fuimos, Osvaldo, vive ya en tu compañía.
All the movement was there, all the opposition was there. My mother was broken, but she was very strong.
El amor invite a Cuba de Osvaldo.
I was thinking, this is not enough. We have to do more, we have to say more. I asked for time to speak.
Sobre la violencia y muerte de mi papá.
I talk about his trust in the Cuban people and his certainty for Cuban liberation. And then I put on the Cuban government the responsibility for the death of my father. The people start to clap and start to scream freedom and liberty.
As Jimi Hendrix would say, feedback. The end of the story is that the family was then talking about state security. They got numerous death threats and had to leave to the United States. The daughter founded an organization called Cuba Decide and is campaigning internationally for free Cuba. And last year, the Inter-American Commission for Human Rights formally recognized Osvaldo Barrasadines and Harold Cepero, who was also in the car, were murdered by agents of the Cuban government in a premeditated assassination. Thank you for your time and for listening to me. Good night.
Juan, thank you very much. I think we learned a lot that we didn't know before. Andrew, you're up.
As we build it, this is a Trump rally, so I want to tell you, this makes memories because, again, my father's side is from Cuba. And I want to show you this is a Trump rally. If this works, let's see. We're going to do salsa lessons next time. Yeah. Bill said, provide the book. We're not going to stay in the house for a while. Guys, this is what it's all about. We got to get geared up here and have the guys. All right, we're going to go to the end of the slides. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about some of the technology woes here tonight. Final announcements. On Friday, April 5th, free event, limited seating, Scott Pressler in Birdsboro, PA. Take a picture of that if you want to make it. All right.
Go back so quick.
Yep. Both of our two speakers want to go to the back of the room. If we were going to draw our raffles, maybe you can help out. Our two speakers, if they need help. All right. Next one, Berks County Patriots, Thursday, April 18th. Again, if you want to take a picture of the slide. Okay, and again, there's the primary election, Tuesday, April 23rd. These are some of our members. We're asking and encouraging you to consider voting for these folks, individuals. Our next month's meeting is Thursday, May 2nd. We're going to see if we have the 50-50 drawing raffle. Possibly one of the speakers, I'm not sure, Mo. Bill Bachberg's going to draw one there. Do you have a mic, Bill? Hold on.
Okay, so thank you to Bill Bachberg. We have a record 50-50 raffle amount tonight. $410 to the winner. And the winner is number 095-1263.
Oh, bitch, there's a person in front of me.
I'll repeat it. 095-1263.
Uh-oh. In other words, Dave, sit down.
1263 are the last four numbers. 1263.
Bingo.
Have it?
Everybody have it?
Yes.
Let's see. Let's just check. 263, we have a winner. And now, Bill Bachberg is going to pick the winner of the VIP ticket for the Trump rally. The winner of the VIP ticket is 075-6329. 329. Last three numbers.
Oh, Mr. John Ecker, well deserved. Kitty, where are you? Where's Kitty? Yeah, Kitty's gonna sit up front.
All right, if we can move the microphone down to, we have the other raffles down there. Mr. Barker, we have some more, the white ticket.
All right, this is for the Trump hat.
Yeah.
I fucking was out here. Give my goddamn hat. I've been telling you for a month now. Give me my hat.
One size fits all.
Get out of here.
Any other raffles back there? All right, we drew that out. Closing remarks, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for coming out this evening. Again, We appreciate the announcement regarding Donald Trump coming to our area. We thank Mr. Blockenberg. And we thank each and every one of you. We thank our two great speakers, Vince Stallman and Juan Suarez. To make America great, you gotta play a part. If you're sitting on the sidelines, they're gonna do what they did in Cuba. You're gonna be brainwashed. So you gotta put your time in there, either with some helping out with some resources, financial resources, stuffing envelopes, whatever it takes to do. We'll be in touch with you. We'll close with a quick prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this great evening tonight, for all patriots that are here this night, for our veterans, our candidates. And we ask you to have everyone a safe trip home. God bless you. See you next month. Bring a family member or friend.